Hey, this is Ralph, and in this video, it's basically my office hours right now. It's on Tuesday of week three. We're at week three right now. Now, in class yesterday, one of your classmates was having an issue with her web page, and I looked at it after class with her, and it's really well written, and I couldn't see any kind of mistake. So she published it and sent me the link. And then I went there and I downloaded it. And I haven't looked at it yet, but I wanted to look at it with you just so you could kind of see my process. And that, yeah, not, and I'm assuming there is something up that we can fix. There is a fixable mistake in here somewhere, but I'm thinking it might be very, very subtle. But let me give you a little bit of background here. So I've got the code for the page open right here. And we've got our syntax highlighting so we can kind of see how things are looking. Um, it's the page we did in class together on Monday. Let's see if does anything jump out at me. The Geneva font is in white, whereas the other ones aren't. I'm not quite sure why. It doesn't look like a mistake has been typed here, but otherwise, okay. So let's assume that's not the mistake yet. So we'll come back to this code in just a moment. But let me show you this on the browser. So this is the page, and this looks very much like what we did in class on Monday. But if you recall, the text was further down. It was more in the middle of the page. So we got to see what's going on with that. Other things are looking well. It looks like there is a gradient. I see lightish purple to a darker purple. And we do have the red border here. Now you'll notice that I get a little bit of scroll action going on. And I get a little bit of horizontal scroll, and I do get a little bit of vertical scroll. And that is an issue, and that's something I'll talk more about once we are doing our responsive pages. I definitely want us to avoid horizontal scrolls, but for now, I'm not too concerned about it. So we'll kind of see what's going on with that. The vertical scroll is not as concerning as a horizontal scroll, and I'm not sure if that's a related issue. So clearly there's something a little bit amiss. So let's go back to the VS Code. And I do see down here in the lower left corner, super tiny, we do have a couple potential errors. Something about the car set in line 6 and something about the viewport in line 9. Maybe these are culprits because sometimes a typo up in the head section can impact things later on. So I want to look at line 6 and line 9. So in line 6, we have meta car set equals UTF-8. Now it is spelled nicely. I don't like the fact that there's an uppercase M. I don't think that's wrong, but this student is not consistently doing uppercase M. So I'm going to change that to a lowercase m. I wouldn't expect that to be the issue. Meta car set UTF-8. And I think the other one was on line 9. Meta name viewport. I'm just looking for spelling and syntax. Content equals width equals device width, comma, initial scale equals 1.0, closing quote. That is spelled very, very well. In fact, obviously line 6, meta car set, that was spelled very well. Now, so why is Visual Studio Code telling us that's an error? I don't know, but I just noticed something. Sometimes these get a little bit confused. They say, hey, that's a mistake. And they're still down there as mistakes, even though that capital M was not the issue. But there is a small typo that I'm noticing way up at the top of the page, very, very subtle. And obviously I didn't catch this when I was looking at the code with a student yesterday. And this could be a significant culprit. It's definitely the culprit for our meta car set. So look above line 6. Let me zoom in on this. So small typo up near the top of the page. Look at this doc type definition. Should be an exclamation mark right in there. And that takes away any errors. So let's close that. Let me zoom back out for a moment. Now, I'm curious if that's made any change to the page. I wouldn't think it would. I'll have to do, oh, interesting. This does seem centered now. So this seems a little bit different, but we still have our vertical scroll. We still have our little bit of horizontal scroll, but at least we got those couple of errors taken care of. So yeah, exclamation right up in there. I'll just get rid of that extra line space. Okay. Good news, bad news. Good news, we fixed those mistakes. Bad news, those mistakes, which were being found by the Visual Studio Code, or at least kind of found, didn't solve our issue. So let's kind of go through a little bit more. The word description up here is misspelled. That's not causing an issue, I'm sure, but let's go ahead and fix that while we're here. So description, that wasn't causing any design element though. So no, I mean, even if we go back and check, I have to hit refresh because I'm not using live server on this one. Yep, so that doesn't change anything. Now we have our reset rule in here. Color coding looks good. Margin 0, padding 0, border 0, box sizing, border box. That looks fantastic. And this is properly commented out. So that way it's not causing us any issues, just our syntax. So no worries there. Let's get to the body of the page. We've got our font family. We have a series of fonts in here. That looks good. Background color. We've got a color, that's fine. Now she's got an extra space in here, but that's not hurting anything. There's no rule on the number of spaces or even if you have a space. So not a big deal there. Foreground color, text color, minimum height 100 VH. Okay. Display flex, that looks good. Justify content center, position relative, border 4 pix solid red. And just so we can see that everything's working here, 8 pixels solid and orange. If I jump over here and refresh, there we go. We got the bigger orange border, so we can tell that that's working. That's fine. Ooh, I think I got an idea for what's causing the scrolling issue. Just something came to me here. In fact, let me go ahead and show you that. So just changing that border just kind of triggered something. And I think what might be causing the little scroll action is the sizing of the gradient, the oral gradient. I think the gradient is set either a little bit too big or it's just not contained properly within something. So I'm gonna scroll on down to the oral gradient. Look at this for a moment. We got a 100 VW and a height of 100 VHs, and I'm pretty sure I did that in class. But I'm wondering now if a width of 100% wouldn't change things. I'm going to ignore the height, and I'm just changing the width to 100%. And I'm going to see what happens. There we go. So that gets rid of those vertical and horizontal scrolls. And basically, there's viewport width, and then there's also parent width. And sometimes they're the same, but sometimes they're a little bit different. Now, the 100% width will actually be based on the parent. And since I have a border in here, it's going to be positioned on 100% inside the border, whereas the viewport width would be including the border. And it's a little bit weird, but we're going to do more things soon, which will help clarify that issue. So one minor issue solved. That was just a design element. So that gets rid of our scrolling problem. And do we still have the gradient on there? Yeah, it looks like I still see a gradient. It's kind of hard to tell. We go from this purple to transparent. I'm going to change transparent to pink just so it stands out a little bit more. And refresh. Ooh, I don't notice that. I wonder if me messing with that height is probably doing something. So let's do this. I think the height being 100 VHs might be okay. Let's see. Yeah, so there's the height of 100 VHs. Notice I lose my my top border up there, but otherwise it looks pretty good. And I think that's just because I went to pink. And if I went to transparent and refresh, there we go. Things are looking better. So we do have the transparent or the gradient going in, and our scrolling is looking good. So I think that is okay. It was really just that width. 100% instead of 100 VWs, and we'll see how that goes. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to go back up here. I want to go. Let's see. I was looking at the body. I'm feeling good about the body. H1, align self bottom. We played around with this, but I was working with a student after class, and I asked her to change a couple things just to kind of do some tests. So let's put align self back to center, and look at that. Oh my gosh. Okay. So was it just the oral gradient causing the issue? Now, I could have sworn align self bottom was a word, but maybe that's not it. Align self. Hmm. Oh, you know what? With align self, it's okay. Let's look at this. So here's a situation where I know there's this align self property for CSS, and I'm not 100% clear on the different values apparently that I can put in. I thought that bottom was an option. I knew center was an option. So let's see. I'm going to jump out to the web, and I'm just going to say CSS align self property. I don't even think I have to do the word property. Align self. And we're going to find very quickly MDN, great resource, W3 Schools, great resource. I'll go to W3 School since that's the one I tend to push a little bit most often. And I'm going to scroll down to the values I can use. Here we go. Bottom is not a choice. Center is a choice. And then there's a few other choices on here which aren't going to make sense to you, but it will make more sense later on in the term. So that's why. So definitely using the word bottom as a test case value was not helping anything. So it looks like we're back in business with center. However, I'm curious, if I go back to this oral gradient and I change this width back to 100 VW, I do have autosave on. Back over here, refresh. Well, gee, that looks, the text is still centered where I want it to be. We do have the scrolling issue, but that's a separate issue. So what caused that break? Was it this exclamation mark up here? Get rid of that exclamation mark in doc type definition. Refresh. There we go. So the exclamation mark in the doc type definition was really the critical culprit in this scenario. Exclamation mark on at the very top was line 1, maybe line 2, depending on where that was. And of course, it was for the scrolling under oral gradient 100% instead of 100 VWs takes care of that, which means we can go back and change this border to 4 pixels solid red. And I don't know if the student will want to keep that border in there. We just use that border as a temporary thing. In fact, I think I even had her type it in after class. So I am going to comment it out. That gets rid of the border. And we are in business. Cool. All right. So small little typos can have an impact for sure. And if it hasn't happened to you yet, I promise you it will happen to you very, very soon. And although this would have been a great question to pose in our Zoom, in fact, I think I might post this in Zoom in that second set of eyes just to see what happens there. Or I'll just share this link to this video so that way people can see it. It gets kind of weird putting in big chunks of code. I'll think of something though. Okay, so thanks for watching and take care.